Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Iyun Shulchan Aruch. Today we're starting Hilchos Krias Shema, Siman and Ches 58. Of course, when you talk about Krias Shema, the first thing that comes to mind is 3 hours, the Gra, Magen Avram. You know, some places it's standard to be machmer for the Magen Avram. I remember when I was in yeshiva in Israel, in Beitar, um, they made us daven at 7:30 in the morning. On Shabbos morning, I had to get up 7:30 in the morning to make the Magen Avram Krias Shema, because one of the minion to make the Magen Avram Krias Shema, 7:30 in the morning. Sometimes it was earlier. As Magen Avram was even earlier. We have to get up like 7:05 on Shabbos morning. I mean, Shabbos morning is my one day a week. I get to sleep a little late. That was crazy. So a lot of people are machmir. The reason being that Krias Shema is a mitzvah d'oraisa and something d'oraisa l'chomra. We're not sure the halacha follows Magen Avram and the Gra. We'll explain, what the Magen Avram and Gra's machlokus is based on, but the Gra, it gives you a little more time, usually like an hour more time. But even with the Gra, a lot of people struggle to keep the Gra. People wake up late. You see people in the shul here putting on tefillin, halas and tefillin at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of Hasidim do this. Hasidim were not makbid on the Gra. A lot of Hasidish kehilas are not makbid on keeping Krias Shema bismana. And the Litvish world cries, screams, how could they mazalza, how could they mitzvah d'oraisa, they give them every single day. It's not so simple. It's not so partial that you're losing a mitzvah. The Mishnah clearly says, first of all, I'll note that the Gemara says that really the mitzvah of Krias Shema is kivasikin, to say it a little more before Netzach Hama, and to be so mekula tefillah at Netzach Hama, to say in Shemona Esrei exactly at Netzach Hama, and Krias Shema a little bit before that. That's the ideal mitzvah. If it's mashma from the Gemara that if you do even a little after Vasikin, that's already b'di'evet. It's not just the Shulchan Aruch says mitzvah min amufkar, but then he says in Siv Beis, right? You have to make sure to do it as quickly as possible. It's just mitzvah min amufkar, right? It's like hidra mitzvah to do it at Netzach Hama, right before Netzach Hama, Vasikin. That's hidra mitzvah. But really, you have until 3 hours. So why does Siv Beis? He says, Imlo Karar, it goes from Rabbeinu Yonah. You have to do it at Kol Ma Sheyuchal. And I remember learning the Ran who brings the Rabbeinu Yonah. Sorry, it's the Rabbeinu Yonah. There is no Ran in Brachos. Rabbeinu Yonah says, he really says it officially. He says, Lechatchila, the time is Vasikin. B'di'evet, any time after Vasikin. That's why you should do it as quickly as possible, because the mitzvah, the real time is Vasikin. B'di'evet is afterwards. Even though the Shulchan Aruch seems to say in Sif Aleph that mitzvah min amufkar is to do it Vasikin. So Mufkar sounds like Hidr Mitzvah, not that it's Lechatchila and B'di'evet, but anyway, it's a steer in the Shulchan Aruch. Seems to be, he's grappling with the fact whether it's B'di'evet to say it after that time. The Mishnah says if you read it after 3 hours, Lo Hifsid K'Koreh B'Torah. What does that mean, Lo Hifsid K'Koreh B'Torah? So, most people think that you missed out on the mitzvah of Krias Shema. After 3 hours, you had until 3 hours the mitzvah of Krias Shema. After 3 hours, even b'di'evet, you're not yotzim mitzvah Krias Shema, right? You say Berachos Krias Shema 4 hours, and you should say it with Krias Shema, because that's better to say Berachos Krias Shema with the Krias Shema. You're not losing anything by saying Krias Shema. It's like our psukim in the Torah. You can say psukim in the Torah anytime you want. After 4 hours, then you can say Krias Shema, just like psukim K'Korah B'Torah, right? And this is what he says in Siv Vav, the Shulchan Aruch says. You can read it the whole 4th hour. It sounds like you don't have the same schar as reading it bismana, but you do get some schar. How do you get any schar? Everyone assumes until 3 hours. Once the gra zman is over, you get no schar for Krias Shema anymore. It says in the Shulchan Aruch exactly the opposite. It doesn't say lo yatsi de chavas. It doesn't have the same schar. Just like he says, you don't get the same schar for dying vasikin. You don't do it after vasikin. You don't get the same schar. Also, after 3 hours, you don't get the same schar, but you also get the mitzvah. So what's going on over here? The Mishnah's mashma also lo hifsid K'Koreh B'Torah. There is a Gemara that says that people shouldn't tell other people this, but technically you could be yotzei your mitzvah of Talmud Torah. If you don't learn Torah during the day, you have a chiyuv to learn Torah every day, maybe kovei itim in the morning and night, because it says b'shach b'chav kol mecha dibarta bam. That's what the mitzvah is taught. The Parshas Krias Shema is talking about. V'dibarta bam is to talk about limud Torah. The Gemara in Yuma and Daf Yotet says v'dibarta bam she ikar dibura bam. Your main part of your day should be learning Torah. Not that you should learn the whole Torah the whole day. So Dibarta was talking about learning Torah, and Dibarta shift chavisecha lechta v'derech wherever you are shav kol mecha, and that's where we learn to say Krias Shema shav kol mecha. The pasuk shav kol mecha is going with Dibarta bam, which is talking about limud Torah. So Limud Torah is supposed to be Shal Klav Kamek. How are you Yotzi is mitzvah Limud Torah? Through saying Krias Shema. That's what the point of Krias Shema. The reason we have a mitzvah of Krias Shema. Where do we learn it from? B'Shal Klav Kamecha. B'Shal Klav Kamecha. V'Dibarta Bam to say Krias Shema to fill your mitzvah of Limud Torah. B'Shal Klav Kamecha in the morning. That's why Kovei Item in the morning and night. We learn from Krias Shema, right? If you didn't learn anything else, you're still Yotzi your mitzvah of Talmud Torah in the day because you're Yotzi the mitzvah of Dibarta Bam. So you're Yotzi your mitzvah of Limud HaTorah by saying Krias Shema. So the purpose of Krias Shema is just to fill the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah. So it seems that the mitzvah of Krias Shema is not really a mitzvah b'fnei atzmo. It's not its own unique mitzvah. The mitzvah is to ensure that you'll be learning Torah that day. Maybe there's a difference between Limud HaTorah and Dibur HaTorah. Dibur HaTorah is Torah Shebechtav, actually saying the words. Limud HaTorah is, the Iker is to think about the Torah, to analyze the Torah, Torah Shebal Peh, Torah Shebechtav. We could talk about maybe there's two mitzvahs. Anyway, if you're not, it's Korah b'Torah, right? You're Yotzi the mitzvah. If you want to say there's two mitzvahs of Limud HaTorah, there's a mitzvah of Limud Torah Shebechtav, and it's a mitzvah of Limud Torah Shebal Peh. But at least the mitzvah of Torah Shebechtav, you're Yotzi of the Dibarta Bam through saying Krias Shema. By saying Krias Shema twice a day, you're Yotzi. You're Yotzi Krias Shema. You're Yotzi the mitzvah of Limud Torah. That's what it means. After it, Korah b'Torah, after 3 hours. So why is 3 hours? Well, what's better about the 3 hours? Say it within 3 hours. What's better to say Vasikin? So you'd have to say, obviously, that Talmud Torah is Keneged Kulam. It should be the most important thing in your day because the point of Limud Torah is to do the mitzvah. So it makes sense to do the mitzvahs to learn about the Torah before you can do the mitzvahs. We talked about Cheshbon Nefesh to do in the morning and the night. Part of learning the Torah is to remember about the Torah in the morning to prepare yourself for that day, to prepare yourself which mitzvahs you're going to do that day, and at night to review what you did that day. So that's why Torah instituted that you should have Kovei Itim La Torah. You should have at least learning some Torah in the morning and night in order to prepare yourself. In the morning, it's to prepare yourself for the mitzvahs of that day. So the earlier the better, right? When you get up early in the morning, most people a lot of people get up early before sunrise. So it's say it, Vasikin, that's the best time. After that, it's been the epid already because you probably started your day and you did other things and you didn't learn your Torah yet. And even if you're not learning, you can't learn everything about your halachas you can do during that day, but you can, when you, the nature of learning Torah is it causes a person to think about his actions and to think, is it proper what I'm doing? Is it not proper what I'm doing? That's the point of the Torah, not just to know exactly what you're going to do that day, but also just to have it on your mind that what I'm doing now today is important, and I have to keep the Torah. I have to follow the Torah. When you learn Torah, it brings a person to a certain sense of thoughtfulness and consciousness that he has to do the right thing. So that's why you have to Limud Torah as early as possible. And Chazal said, right, there's first of the best things to do is right when you wake up in the morning. If you can't do that, do it in 3 hours. Because most people, the Malachim, the Mishnah says, the princes, they wake up until 3 hours. After 3 hours, everybody's up already. Not everybody, some people sleep till 11 o'clock, but most people are up. So if you're delaying it, don't delay it because you're probably starting your day without Krias Shema. So it's important to have a Limud Torah before. Krias Shema is Limud Torah, at least Torah Shebechtav. So don't think it's something else. Don't think you're not Yotzei your mitzvah of Krias Shema. This Krias Shema, I'm going to explain in the coming shiurim, is really a mitzvah of Limud Torah. It's a form of Limud Torah. It's not its own mitzvah. So people will think that you have to say it by 3 hours. No, you have to say it. Ideally, you're supposed to say it Vasikin. If you're waking up late, technically, according to what I'm saying, if you wake up at 11 o'clock, you're starting the day at 11 o'clock. Say Krias Shema then. There should be nothing wrong with that. We'll get more into this as we go along. I'm sure you're shocked by what I just said, but I think it's true. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the coming ones. Have a good day. Bye.